Okay, good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for your patience. I'd like to call this regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen for Monday, February 4th to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Is there any public comment this evening? Anyone here for public comment? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the first Selectmen's report. I really don't have much to report tonight, although I do want to give you, for the minutes record, some language from a couple of bills for those who are interested in listening from home. There's some bills that we all need to pay close attention to. Senate Bill number 164 is an act including certain mental or emotional impairments within the definition of personal injury under the workers' comp statutes. That one could be a significant unfunded mandate on municipalities. Senate Bill 431 is an act concerning property tax reform. That would add a mill onto the local property tax that would be collected by the state of Connecticut. It would eliminate the local motor vehicle tax and create a statewide mill rate for motor vehicle taxes. And let's see if there's anything else exciting in there. Those are the two large components of Senate Bill 431. Senate Bill 454 is an act concerning the creation of regional school districts. This one was introduced by Senate Pro Tem Martin Looney, and that would require districts to potentially consolidate along the lines of probate court consolidations for cities and towns with populations under 40,000 individuals. And a companion piece of legislation, Senate Bill 457, introduced by Senators Duff and Ostin. That would, it's called an act concerning the size of school districts, and it would consider the regionalization of districts with less than 2,000 students. So I think there's about 3,000 bills that have been introduced thus far, this legislative session. Only about 300 or so will make their way through the committee process, so that's where they are right now. They're in deliberations. And I will continue to bring interesting pieces of legislation to you, and we will begin to look at the potential municipal impacts from some of these bills that are being proposed. That's it for me. Okay.
There's a public hearing on the bag ordinance.
Yes, tomorrow evening.
Tomorrow night here.
I think.
There's Wednesday.
Is it Wednesday the
Wednesday
6th?
night.
Wednesday
The
night.
6th. Yep.
So if anybody's interested, please come. That's at 8.
Yep.
Oh, and the deadline to renew your spot on the town's parking waiting list has passed.
Okay. New business, discuss and take action to accept a donation from the Fireworks Committee.
So you've got a resolution in your packet. I have a number to fill in the blank. And I wasn't sure if the money was coming from the chamber and the fireworks. That's why I had them both listed, but we should take off the chamber. It's just from the fireworks committee.
Well, yeah, the fireworks committee has raised.
Has raised,
Right.
So the amount is $27,753.81. They are donating that to us now that we have taken over the production of the fireworks. And so you have a resolution to accept the gift and forward it to the Board of Finance and the RTM for their consideration and approval.
Great. I want to thank the Parks and Rec Commission for taking on the town fireworks.
Here.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anybody have questions about this gift? No? Okay, hearing none, then I will ask for a motion to approve the resolution authorizing the acceptance of a gift of $27,753.81 from the Fireworks Committee.
So moved.
Yep, may I have a second?
Second, however, do we need to amend that Chamber of Commerce, or did we already do that?
Yes.
In the-
Resolution
Just take that
as
out.
amended.
In the second.
Just remove, in the title, remove the Chamber of Commerce,
And in the second
and then in the
whereas.
second whereas,
Well,
correct?
no, I would keep, I think it's okay in this
In
heading.
the heading?
Because it's actually, the fund that it's coming from is actually called the Chamber of Commerce Charitable Foundation, I think. So that's okay. But I just thought the whereas, it's the Fireworks Committee has raised funds to support the annual Independence Day fireworks
Okay.
in the past.
Okay.
So that's the only place I would remove it from.
Okay, so Kip has moved the resolution as amended. May I have a second? Mark?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Great, thank you very much. And Susan, thanks again for all of your hard work on the fireworks. Discuss and take action to recommend tax relief program to the RTM. So some of you probably remember the federal government shutdown, and there were a lot of unintended consequences to that shutdown, some of which extend to people in our community who are federal employees who didn't receive paychecks for quite some time and had some challenges meeting their property tax obligations. So this is a resolution of the Board of Selectmen that would allow the town to implement establishing, in relation to the federal government shutdown, an assistance program that will allow our tax collector to defer the receipt of tax payments interest-free. And the way the program works is, as outlined by Governor Lamont, as soon as these employees are made whole by the federal government, they would have 60 days after the shutdown to make their tax payments. If they don't do so, then they incur all the normal interest charges. So it's literally a short-term tax deferral on an interest-free basis. And I would like your concurrence that we allow our tax collector to provide that kind of assistance to federal employees in Darien. Thus far, it only affects one federal employee. Questions about this?
No,
This is great. I'm
I
happy to move
support it.
I'll
Yeah.
fully
Yeah.
support it.
Yeah.
Okay. Kip, questions? No?
Nope.
Okay,
Happy to move it.
great. Susan moves. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Pam? All those in favor? Great. Thank you very much. And discuss and take action to approve the Darien Town Hall Employees Union Contract, as we discussed in executive session. No further questions. I'll entertain a motion to approve that
So
agreement.
moved.
Kip, may I have a second?
Second.
Mark? All those in favor? Great. And I want to thank the negotiating team for their hard work in negotiating that contract. Okay, we have several appointments this evening. In the interest of time, I'll read them all, and if we could approve them with one vote, that would be great. I'd like to appoint Kathleen Finnegan to the Advisory Committee on Sustainability for a term ending on 12/31/19. Appoint Catherine Lenahan to the Architectural Review Board for a term ending on 6/30/22. Reappoint Erica Morris to the Parks and Rec Commission for a term ending 3/31/21. And Kim Hufford to the Police Commission. Kim's here this evening. Hello, Kim. To the Police Commission for a term ending on 6/30/21. May I entertain a motion to approve those appointments and reappointments? May I have a second?
Second.
Mark? Okay. All those in favor? Thank you so much. Okay, we have meeting minutes of January 22nd.
I'll move them.
Susan moves. Any corrections or additions? Hearing none, may I have a
You need a second.
May I have a second?
Second.
Kip? All those in favor? I was getting there. Okay, agenda review.
The only thing I have, which who knows if it'll be successful or not, would love to hear from our 4 representatives / senators. If they can't come to us, maybe they can come to the town and maybe explain. I know they've been to other towns and had an open forum with the taxpayers, so I would love to see them all in Darien together.
Okay. We can send out a request. Anything else? Agenda review? No? No? Okay, great. Then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn our Board of Selectmen meeting.
So, or Pam can.
Pam, may I have a second? Susan, all those in favor? Great. And we will move now directly into our budget workshop, and we will start with the police department. Thank you for Chief Osborne and Captain Anderson and Commissioner Hufford for being here this evening. Should we just stay up here, folks? Are you comfortable up here?
Yeah.
All right, great. You guys are welcome to come forward or stay right where you are, whatever your desire.
Yeah.
Good evening, I'm Lily.
Thank you. Okay.
So we're on the police budget. They have their own tab. Give me a second, I've got some stuff I need to dig out. So there were some questions that you had raised at the last meeting that you wanted to have answered by the chief. So I'll go through those and he can chime in if he has anything to add.
Okay. Thank you.
You had asked about the civilian dispatchers and what impact they have on police overtime. And really, they have minimal impact on police overtime. Where the biggest impact he sees that they might have is if we have to hold a civilian dispatcher over into the second shift, where normally a police officer would dispatch, and we have to bring somebody in on the second shift to work in dispatch if we had a storm. Because normally, right now, we only have one officer on that shift.
So that's looking at the civilian dispatch from the dispatchers and their associated overtime. But what is the positive implication to civilian dispatchers in mitigating police overtime? If any,
they were counted in towards minimum manning in the past. So not in that regard. The only thing I could think of is if that we had that one other on the road and something is going on and you don't need to bring somebody back in, but.
Right. It allows us to have an extra officer on the road. So instead of having an officer dispatching, we have an extra officer on the road. And
So there may be times when you would have called
Right.
somebody in the past that you don't have to now because you've already got the extra guy.
Right.
because of our minimum manning requirements.
Or because of anything, really.
Well, we always have minimum manning, but what Kate is alluding to is if it gets very busy, in other words, something happens, major accident where we have to call more people in, we would already have somebody in. And we have 6 on the road instead of 5 and 1 inside.
Okay. Is everyone satisfied with that? Okay, next.
You'd also asked about regionalization of dispatch and what other towns are doing. And Westport and Fairfield are regionalizing. So far, the only ones that plan to. When you say free space in the former GE building in Fairfield, do you mean that the space is rent-free or just that it was available?
From what I'm told, the space was available, and by free, I mean, I'm told it's a 25-year lease at $1 a year.
Okay, that's called free.
Yeah.
Wow.
So both of their dispatch centers were nearing the end of their lives, their useful lives, and needed upgrades, so this was an opportunity for them. And currently, we haven't talked with anybody about unionizing. regionalizing.
Okay.
You also asked about the number of walk-ins at night, and that's something that's difficult for them to track and put, it's not something we do track now, so really couldn't give you an accurate answer on that. But people do come in. And the sense is that if we went to a regional dispatch, we would still need to have somebody there. We do not want a dark police headquarters. The question would be whether or not that had to be a sworn officer or could it be a civilian? And what the chief expressed is that he feels he'd be satisfied with a civilian in that position initially. Though they would have duties beyond just being present to answer walk-ins.
But if we had just a civilian, that would be an additional person.
That's if we did, well,
So
how to
if we
put it?
regional,
If we regionalized, we would have a reduction in headcount.
right. But
Because
we
it
would
would-
still need a civilian of some
Of
sort
some sort, yes.
to man that.
Do you have overnight custodians, maintenance service?
No, not overnight, no.
Okay.
We have one part-time custodian who comes in at 4 o'clock. He works 4 to 8.
But I don't think that's the kind of person we would want.
No, I just was
Yeah,
curious.
no.
Yeah. So that was all of your specific questions.
Understand too, I think I wrote in there that the two departments in Fairfield County, Westport and Fairfield, pointed out there are substantial upfront costs for this in the form of
New
get,
equipment purchases.
computer compatibility, so that they're all on the same page, where there are RMS systems, CAD systems, union issues, so this has been like 2 years in the works, and they're still not operational yet, from what I'm told.
Yeah.
And that's those are the only two in Fairfield County. Are there others in the state that are regionalized?
There are,
Yes.
yes, smaller agencies. I understand Waterbury has regionalized with some smaller agencies up that way.
I think hasn't Danbury taken in some other communities when they,
I
They
believe so.
don't, Danbury has used a company
that's what they outsourced.
that hires their civilian dispatchers with some mixed results. That company came and did a presentation at the Fairfield County Chiefs meeting. Mixed results on that.
So that would be akin to our outsourcing to CMed for EMS and fire, right? Because CMed's a regional dispatch center.
Yeah, but it would be different for police services.
Right, yep. Okay, the reason why I'm sure you know, the reason why we're asking those questions is it's reasonable to assume that that will be mandated. And so as we make these important decisions about bringing on additional personnel, we want to be mindful of state mandates.
Sure.
Okay,
So we had a brief overview last week. Let's go back to the page 99, the police administration budget.
Wait, can I ask a question it was basically, it's not really in the write-up, it's, I guess it would be page 92. It's great that we have, under Marine Unit Enforcement Actions, summons and warning. It's great that we have those numbers. Is it possible, just out of curiosity, to get it for cars? Summons and warnings versus just tickets?
I'm sorry, I didn't follow you.
So you guys have reported to us.
I don't have the same document.
Oh,
She's
I'm
looking at your
sorry.
performance
Yeah.
measures.
Okay.
Yeah, your performance measures. So you've told us how many summons/warnings you've given as far as the Marine unit is
Yes.
concerned. And that's great to know. Can we also have that same information about automobiles?
Absolutely.
Yeah, just as another, I mean,
For
I'm sure
what
you have
time,
it.
what time period are you looking for?
So this started in actual of 15-16, and then it goes to projected of 18-19, and then 19-20.
You really just add
Same time frame.
another measure to your
Yeah.
schedule there.
Yeah,
So you're looking for,
summons It says Marine Unit Enforcement Action, and then underneath it says summons/warnings.
Oh, okay.
So
So I
if
would
you-
imagine you would probably want traffic stops and then summonses issued and warnings issued.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm sure it's information you guys have, it would
Yes.
just be good to,
Oh, that's easy.
yeah. Perfect.
Okay, so we're on 90, 98, 99?
Yeah, 98 would be the revenue, 99 the expense. So, as you've been told, Captain Waller is retiring. And Jen worked out through the various, with a captain going, assuming we'll have a top step lieutenant move up to captain and top step sergeant move up, all those top step people will move up one and will be replaced by first step. Throughout the budgets in the various places, we can cut 60,300 to recognize that domino effect, I guess.
From full-time
From
salary?
the full-time salary here, it would be 18,000. And we'll give you, when we do the cut list for the end, we'll give you the numbers. There'll be 39,000 in patrol, some holiday money cut in patrol, and then some social security money cut.
Okay.
Kip had raised the question with me as to why the holiday pay had decreased. Beginning with when Chief Osborne became chief and Lieutenant Waller became a captain, we changed the package, the way we compensated police officers, or the non-represented police officers. In the past, they continued to receive the specific benefits that the union officers got, such as holiday pay and educational bonuses. When Ray became chief, the package we offered, we incorporated that all into one number. And when making a salary offer, we incorporated, we took into consideration what he was making as a captain with the holiday pay, with the educational bonuses, in making a salary officer. So now he gets the salary, he doesn't get those extra pays, but they were inclusive. And the same thing with Captain Waller. Captain Anderson still, he was in place before that, so he still receives a separate pay. Conferences and meetings, that increases to allow, we now have a second officer who's been through the FBI Academy. And so that increase there is to allow the second officer to attend the annual FBI conference. I took a look at the agenda for a prior year conference, and I think it's very valuable for us to send these officers to get that training. So I support that.
Okay.
And uniforms, that increase there. We heard during union negotiations some comments about availability of new uniforms. And so I had asked Captain Anderson to boost that number in response to the comments we had received. So if you want to, that one's on me.
On the availability or the quality? You lost me a little there.
The comments were that we didn't always order new. If we had somebody who was here a short time, we might repurpose some uniforms. And there were other comments that were not necessarily fair, but I did ask the captain during the negotiations to take a look at that and increase the amount of money we were budgeting for uniform replacement.
So is that an item that's also reflected in the union contract?
No, no, this
Okay.
is, this is us providing the pants, the shirts, typical outfit for a new officer and replacement throughout the year.
But that's not an item that falls within the union contract itself?
No.
Okay, all right.
Okay, before we leave this page, professional services years ago was quite a bit higher.
That's going to fluctuate from year to year. So that's where the testing happens out of.
Okay,
So the chief is expecting the testing to happen in this fiscal year.
right,
So you will see him coming before you with a request for a transfer in the
Transfer.
coming weeks.
okay.
And we have to do 3 tests.
I I got the proposal today, so I'm working on that.
Yeah, we don't have any valid promotional exams at this time.
There's an item here that hasn't been funded since 2015-16, employee counseling.
We moved that to the employee benefits area. So it's still funded, just in another part of the budget.
Fine, thank you.
Okay.
Next, we have the Detective and Youth Bureau, and
Sorry, I have a quick question on page 100. The fingerprinting, are we anticipating this, is there a certain time of year that this goes way up, that we're only at 975, but we have budgeted 3,000?
that's a good question. Fingerprinting fee? Does
I
that,
mean,
is
it's
it
just-
cyclical? Does it happen, like, do we get a rush at one point in the year, or is it just a?
No, it's just,
It is,
I mean, in some years, we get a lot of people applying for gun permits. They have to
Okay.
be fingerprinted. Other
Maybe-
years, it's slower.
it's not a lot of money, I was just
Yeah.
curious.
I would
looking
say,
at it.
yeah, it's low right now, but if you look at the history,
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah,
2,500 to 3,000 has been a valid number.
okay.
In the Detective Bureau, there are no program changes here. The one thing I'll point out is conferences and meetings. We're trying to send more detectives to the Fairfield County Detective Conferences. It's $25 a person a meeting, so this covers 32 possible meeting attendances. So again, this is a training item, which, educational item. I think this is really good for them, important for them. Okay, the next page, 102 is patrol. So first thing I want to point out is that we consolidated Marine Patrol in with regular patrol. So you see that primarily marine gear and supplies. And Jim, was there another?
Motor fuel and lubricants is all marine, right?
Okay, yeah, okay, that's all, and that's because they can't gas up at the Public Works garage.
Well,
No, not yet, huh?
Not yet.
Not yet.
What we did do, though, in that regard, you see the numbers have kind of shifted from operation to marine fuel. We did purchase a fuel tank for our marine division that goes on the back of our pickup truck. We're gonna no longer now be paying dock rate for gasoline, but we can get it from the pump, and we can bring the pump down there and fill up the, so probably we're looking at, I don't know what we pay for gasoline for town, but we're probably saving 50% on our gas fuel. Even though we don't pay the tax at the dock, we pay a higher rate when we, so.
About that, yeah.
all safe and secure and
Not in buckets in the
approved by
back
the
of the truck.
EPA.
Oh, okay.
I was gonna ask, yeah. So part of the bigger discussion that you'll be having tonight, relating to the dispatchers, the budget request had included in this patrol line, a request for an additional officer, and as I told you when I presented the budget, it was an either-or kind of deal. This, we could provide the SRO by hiring the one officer versus the shift of civilian dispatchers. Really, the issue is, you know, short-term cost versus long-term, and what is the way you want to get to the police department that we want to have. So obviously, because I included the civilian dispatchers, I did not put forward the patrol officer here. The holidays, there's no change in holidays, there's just changes in rates. And the personal protection gear, that's not a cut, that was a reduction. The ask was lower. That's just a cyclical thing, depending on how many vests we have to replace in any given year.
Okay.
We do fund that as if we don't get reimbursement from the federal government, but the Ballistic Vest Partnership Program that's been in effect for many years now, we do receive a 50% reimbursement from the federal government on regular ballistic vests that we buy. We fund it as if we're not going to get it, because we can't guarantee Congress will reapprove it every year, but typically we do see, whatever we budget, we typically do not spend that entire amount.
The increase in the medical supplies is to replace our Narcan supply.
Oh, okay.
It expires. And then you see the marine gear added in there. And then on the weapons, that is buying some tasers for training. The replacement of the service weapons was done through the fire alarm fund, and the false alarm fund.
False alarm.
So we purchased tasers originally, the tasers originally came with the body cams.
Yes.
But now we have to buy more.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that's entirely accurate. I think the chief
Okay,
can
sorry.
speak to that.
You're talking about,
I think we're talking about
The weapons,
the simunition.
it's for training purposes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but those are not tasers.
Oh,
right, we need to modify a certain number of new, because we got new guns, we need to modify a certain number of additional guns for active shooter training. So we modify them into weapons, street weapons into training weapons.
okay.
So we can, that money can come out of the alarm fund. There is still money available for those purchases. It doesn't necessarily have to be in this budget.
Okay.
I think it's about.
Well, isn't that germane to the conversation, though, about
Should it be?
where weapons really should be funded from? I think that, Kate and I have discussed this, and while I appreciate the financial diligence on using monies that you have available, I think weapons for our department and training weapons really is an operational expense that should be reflected in your budget. So we would have to decide if, it's here now, so
Mhm. I would,
we should discuss it.
I would leave it there, but that would be my recommendation.
You would leave it there.
I would leave it here, yes,
The modification costs.
yes.
Okay.
In, at your, I think it was your last meeting, I gave you a page detailing the request for the overtime.
Right. A lot of mandated overtime, huh? Training.
There is every year the state comes out with new mandates for us. This past year was 2 hours of mandatory training per officer for human trafficking, something that we had not encountered before. So every police officer in the state of Connecticut has to go through that. And there's other mandatory training that we have to bring officers up to speed on. It's all listed there.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible.
Every year, there's new domestic violence type laws that go into
Yeah.
effect. We have to get retrained. Critically important stuff.
Well, I mean, without knowing the details about all this stuff, and you get this every year, is 50% really effectively worthwhile, and some of it's just sort of nice to have? I mean, I don't mean from your perspective, but from the state coming down with all these wonderful pronouncements?
Well, some of it's nice to have, some of it's very pertinent, especially in the domestic violence arena.
Well, they changed the law there, you really gotta know what you're
Yes.
doing, yeah,
Yep.
understood.
And as I said, the officers have to really be up on top of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's a big percentage of your overtime.
It is, yeah, and there's a lot more than that. There's de-escalation, there's fair and impartial policing, you know, legal update training every year that we have to bring people in for.
And they want more of our tax dollars, too. Good, great.
Sir,
This is a great breakdown. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, that's very helpful. Because I did have the question, why is overtime up 10%, but then there it is. Okay.
Okay, so the next page, 103, is records.
Are you guys fielding public questions beforehand, before you move from department to department?
Sure, we'll take your question.
On the full-time salary increase, can you tell me what percentage of that is contractually mandated?
That's all contractual.
That's all contractual.
This was, and this is the old contract,
Okay.
so those numbers were based on existing officers who were moving through the steps. This does not yet reflect the contract. We have a tentative agreement, but until we have a signed agreement, we won't be reflecting that in the budget.
Okay, and on the training for overtime, that chart that you guys are looking at up there, I don't remember seeing it, in the book for us, so I guess I was just gonna sort of ask the general question of why overtime time is used for the training hours, particularly if we move forward with the civilian dispatchers, which is gonna free up incremental patrol time for individual officers.
Much of the training is done in a group setting. We can't just do it individually by pulling an officer off the road, one or two at a time. It's done, in large groups, so that's
And we
why
have
it's,
to, I would assume when we set up training for some of these things, that we have to guarantee that they're actually going to be available to do the training. We can't just necessarily pull them in off the road. I'm sure there's some types of training where you can take somebody in off the road and put them in front of the computer and do that, but,
right,
like their firearm instructors or the CPR, the active shooter training, you probably have to ensure that they're going to be available for the block of time.
correct.
So it's either we're paying somebody overtime to do the training or somebody to replace them out on the road.
Correct.
Not having the chart, which I'm gonna ask.
I can send it out
I
to
know
you.
you're gonna do that. But is it showing the overtime from year to year to year to year?
No,
on
what
the
we're referring
same
to is
thing?
just the support for the current year's budget.
Because your overtime, if I go to the patrol, the overtime for the revised budget is 15.3%, but for the proposed budget is 16.3% on the patrol side. So I'm trying to understand why a 1% increase happened on projected overtime. And I understand that it fluctuates and everything, and people not liking cars doesn't help.
I think that the police department does their best job to project what we will need in overtime to replace people on vacation, on sick leave, on medical leave, and detail all the trainings, the mandated trainings that have to happen on overtime.
Is there an analysis on that? I mean, that's tracking. And the reason I'm asking is the Board of Finance has been very specific to the Board of Ed on consistently asking for analysis, and they were going to ask on the same side. And to try and not have the buddy system occur, I think if we can get some of this analysis before it precludes us having to subsequently meet with the Board of Finance and the RTM with the department heads.
Telestaff will give us the hours, correct?
As far as how much overtime is spent?
Yes, but yeah.
It gives us hours, yes.
Okay, so can you give us get us a couple years worth of reports from Telestaff on where the overtime, the source of the overtime was?
I can give you some, yes, as far as, training, sick replacement, vacation replacement, things like that. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah,
Yes,
okay.
yep.
Okay, so we can get some, shows the cause, it will show the hours, and we're not gonna we're gonna have to do some,
Manipulation.
assumptions.
Yeah.
Okay?
No, but with the whole concept that we're not going to continue to meet with department heads, if we can
Yep.
get some of this information up front, it may preclude us having to do that.
Thank you. Okay, we were going to one of the training records. And, that's just rather boring. Program changes.
Boring.
That's good, that's good.
That big leap in cost was all the body cameras.
Yeah.
You gotta remember that.
Where you see a change in the office equipment repair maintenance, that's where some of those things will be consolidated, a lot of those. We left in things that were very specific to the police department.
Oh, so they're somewhere else in the budget, it's not like we eliminated it.
Correct,
Yeah.
correct. Okay. Page 104, we have professional standards. And the reduction you see in training is because collect training can be done online, reducing our need for overtime training.
Right, we don't have to bring somebody in from the state and do a large group training. That's something officers can do while they're working, when there's enough people working.
What kind of training is that?
It's called
Collect.
Collect. It's our online motor vehicle computer, NCIC computer. You have to be
Oh.
certified in that.
Okay, collect didn't mean.
It's like Connecticut Online Law Enforcement Telecommunications.
And we're not allowed to see it.
You know, it's a substantial reduction in training there, where we used to have to do it in a group setting for, say, $20,000. We budgeted an amount now. That amount will cover the officers that we can't do on regular duty simply because of workload.
It's great.
So our next budget on 105 is the school crossing protection. And the chief did look at the possibility of outsourcing this item, but found it was going to be at least double our existing cost. But this is a difficult budget because it's hard to keep our crossing guards.
Yeah.
And not sure that there's any answer to it, but
Any particular reason or many reasons?
I don't think I can really nail it down. It's just, they get $44.50 a day. They have to come for an hour in the morning, an hour in the afternoon.
I think that's the thing, is that,
It's
you know,
not
you have to commit to being here
Yeah.
for the whole day for 2 hours, you know, bookends, and pay's not great.
We've had a very consistent group of gentlemen over the years who are now, and ladies, who are now getting older, and they're kind of, they're moving on. And, you know, we've hired a couple of new people who, you know, have worked at one guy just worked it for a month or so, and he decided he didn't like it, and he's leaving. So,
Is it typical for it to be the police department's responsibility, or in other communities, is it responsibility of the Board of Education?
I'm finding that a lot of police departments do have the responsibility. There are some where it's the Board of Ed. Like I said, City of Danbury, they outsource it to a company, and that's where I got that company that I looked into, but way expensive, very expensive.
Well, also because you're directing traffic, I mean, you're basically directing traffic, so.
Well,
Is
crossing
that-
guards don't direct
No, they're not
traffic.
supposed to.
That's,
Oh.
they just cross kids.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, okay.
Yeah. I get this question a lot.
Yeah.
Like, they stop traffic to let kids cross and keep the kids safe. That's,
I guess that's what I mean.
Yep.
They do put their hands up to stop
Yep,
the traffic.
yes, yep.
Versus direct
yep.
difference, okay.
Do they, I mean, under state law, if somebody's waiting to cross and a car does not stop, I mean, you're supposed to stop anyhow under state law, not that people do it, but you're supposed to. Do they record if somebody doesn't?
Yes,
Their license plate?
there's
Yeah.
a specific state statute that protects crossing guards. Right.
I mean, I know.
For
that
fair
we
to
was-
obey, for fair to obey a crossing guard, yes. If they
Yep.
brought us that information, gave us the plate, we would take action on that.
Okay.
Maybe we should have a public service announcement for crossing guards then.
We've put it out on our social media,
It's-
we put it out, you know, and some of these folks maybe are not all that savvy with social media, but we make a very concerted effort to try to drum up business for potential crossing guards.
And we've
Very
got the
difficult.
application on the web all the time.
Yep.
We don't ever take that.
Is this a problem that most communities have?
No, to be honest with you. I don't know what, but they, Darien, there's not a lot of folks that want to work for $44.50 a day, honestly. Other surrounding communities, they don't have that problem.
For 2 hours though, right?
Right.
Should be clear about that, right?
Yeah, it's for 2 hours of
Yeah,
work,
yeah.
but it's, hour in the morning,
Yep.
and then they have to come back in the afternoon.
Have you ever considered splitting it up to have a morning shift and an afternoon shift for $22.50? I'm not talking about the price, but seriously.
It's gotta go up, Jack.
Somebody might do a morning shift and somebody might do an afternoon shift.
Would you volunteer for that?
I was gonna say, Bert, maybe
I
you
don't know.
could get
It's
some
cover
senior
my
men
lunch.
to
We-
get active in this.
No, we haven't.
think you want them.
We try to,
Because they would direct traffic.
the people that we get normally build kind of a rapport with the folks on the corners that they monitor. And that's been the case with a lot of our crossing guards, and they're greatly missed when they do finally leave.
Yeah.
I agree. I don't think people do it for the money. They do it for public service, you
Yeah.
know. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's becoming harder to find those kinds of people.
Yeah.
Send them our way if anybody knows anyone
Yeah.
who's potentially interested.
So moving to page 106, communications. This is where the addition of the 3 dispatchers is.
Yes, it is.
So could you just talk to us a little bit more, in your own words, of why we should do this?
Civilian dispatch? Okay. Well, I think we're wasting the talents of police officers by having them sit in communications answering telephones. It takes it takes 6 months for a police officer to go through the police academy and get all the training that he or she gets. And, there's a lot of training involved in training a police officer. And then they come in and they get another 480 hours of field training officer training. And then, we put a lot of money into our police officers. And the best place for them is out on the road, enforcing the law, answering calls, stopping cars, suspicious people. The role of the police officer answering the phone is being phased out in most departments. Not many police departments in Fairfield County in our area have police officers answering phones anymore. It's pretty rare. Most are of the civilian or a combination police officer and civilian variety. And it's just the way things are going. The job, honestly, the 3 civilian dispatchers that we do have that work during the day, they're doing a great job. When we have police officers on the desk, it's not their full-time job. They work it maybe once or twice a week. Sometimes they want to be there, sometimes they don't want to be there. Depends on the officer. Sometimes they're forced to work in communications. They don't want to be there. It's not an ideal situation. We would rather see our officers out on the road doing their job, the job that they're trained to do.
And they're not going to be as skilled as the civilian who's trained for that purpose. They're coming in and, how often would they be working the desk? Once a month, maybe?
Well, probably a little more than that.
Every
Depends, it depends on the officer. Once a week, maybe twice a week, tops.
Yeah, they're not going to have the skill in dispatching that somebody who does it all the time. But more importantly, as the chief said, we put a lot of money into training these people to be police officers. That's where we should be using them. If you want the police department to be as functional as it can be with our existing staffing level, we should get them out on the road and have civilians.
So this gives us fully civilianized days and evenings, if we were to approve this.
Yes,
2 civilians per shift?
yes.
Okay.
Midnight shift, 11 to 7, would still be a police officer
Okay.
at that point.
And really, we should have 2 dispatchers, 2 people in dispatch
Right.
at all times.
We should.
Correct.
But we don't
We
do
don't
it
do that
now
currently.
on the evening shift, 3 to 11 shift, we don't.
Okay.
We don't do it 3 to 11 or 11 to 7.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
And what's the argument for doing 11 to 7 with police officer rather than civilians?
That eventually we will do that with civilians as well.
Okay, but then.
That was the original plan, was for 9.
I remember it was
Yeah,
9, yeah.
9 people,
yeah.
3 per shift.
3 per
You need
shift.
3 per shift to have
2 on
24/7.
duty,
Yeah.
1 on backup,
Right.
always
They
rotating.
rotate.
What about the issue of this regionalization of dispatch? What will that happen? If that happens, what do we do then?
We would have to eliminate the positions.
No, but given we're so much union tied into, is it going to be easy to do, or is it we're going to at great cost?
If we no longer have the positions
Right.
because we regionalize.
That's not a problem.
Correct.
Okay,
I would think some competent dispatchers would be folded into that regionalization.
I think so.
They
Yeah.
could
Sure.
transfer.
We'll get to you in a second. We're just board questions first, if that's okay.
But then again, if there's a savings, there won't be that many jobs.
True.
Yeah.
Okay.
Savings are not guaranteed through
Right.
regionalism. You have to be mindful.
Remember the health
Also-
departments.
Keep in mind, we would also need somebody to stay in the building.
Right.
On, day shift, it may not be necessary to have somebody at the front window. I don't know, there's always somebody in the building. There's records people. That would have to be thought through and a little more and discussed, but definitely evenings and midnights, there would have to be somebody there.
Right, if we civilianized the evening shift, do you believe we could bring back the fire dispatch, that the day shift and evening shift with 2 on, we'd be able to bring the fire dispatch back in-house?
I don't see why not,
At a savings
Yeah, I
of
was
what,
gonna say
50
It is
some
50
thousand?
some odd thousand
Yeah.
dollars. It's a couple budgets to come.
Yeah.
It's a minor offset, but, and by having, the civilians on dispatch, we could not only get the SRO, but a dedicated narcotics officer, correct?
That's my vision, yes.
Right now, but if we do the switch.
Yeah. And so that's, that was my point, a week ago. If you, to get to the department that you want to have, to do the department the way we should do it, with 2 people in dispatch, with an SRO at the middle school, with a dedicated narcotics officer. We can do it with all police, but it's more expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not the highest and best use of our police officers.
Mhm.
And it's not the best service in terms of dispatch.
So I'm hearing you, Chief, that it's your vision to have an SRO in the middle school and a dedicated narcotics officer. And I'm just because Kim is here, I'd like to ask her, is that also the vision of the police commission, Kim? And I think I think we're all agreed that a middle school SRO, we all are working to achieve a middle school SRO. But I would like to know tonight, before I make my decision on this, the commitment to a dedicated narcotics officer. Is that something that you feel would enhance our law enforcement services, that we need that kind of service in our community at this time?
I do. I tried it on a temporary basis for a number of months last year. There was plenty of work. We had an officer that was assigned temporarily to the Detective Bureau working that until staffing levels fell because of a retirement and some injuries. I had to pull him off of it, but he did a great job developing intelligence. And understand, he's not going to be out there making arrests every day. It's a lot of narcotics work. It's developing intelligence. It's working with outside agencies and the larger departments to get, the people that are selling drugs in Stamford, Norwalk, surrounding communities are selling to our people here in Darien. And then, once the narcotics officers in the area all work together and share intelligence. And if we had somebody dedicated to that, we're that much farther along in trying to at least make some headway on the problem. Whereas right now, we're kind of hit or miss. Not to say that we don't investigate drug crimes, narcotic crimes, we do, but we don't have anybody that we can send to Stamford PD or send to Norwalk PD and work with their units and find out and give them intelligence information that we have on people. And that's what it's all about. It's developing that information and sharing it and getting information from them as well.
Okay, I'm very happy to hear that. I feel pretty strongly that the time has come for us to have a dedicated narcotics officer, so I hope that would be the outcome of our decision to move forward with this model.
I just wanted to make a note of the overtime, patrol overtime, the detail sheet for the $587,000 in the budget. $252,000 is training.
Mm-hmm.
And that training is for police officers. Now, you do it year after year after year. I don't know how much we could allocate to 1 or 2 or 3 officers, but that's wasted training if you're gonna put them on the desk. I mean, to me, that doesn't make a lot of sense.
I don't disagree.
No, I know that's your point, but I'm just saying,
I'm not sure training is wasted on a police officer on a comm desk, but I hear you, I understand the point you're trying to make.
we're training somebody for, look.
But they're not on the communications desk.
All the time.
All the time.
No, I
They rotate.
understand that.
They rotate.
So following up on training, if we were to approve the additional dispatchers, do you think you have existing, I know you're talking about 2 more officers, but do you have internal officers that could be narcotics and then another one for SRO, or is this something that you would need to hire because they have different training? So are we going to have, whether it's 3 months or 6 months or whatever, more training for new people, existing people? How long would it take to get them actually doing the job?
No, we have personnel that are currently there that could take over these positions.
So you could hire someone, if you're hiring 2 additional officers, they don't need to already have this specific training?
Well,
You're not hiring
You
officers.
wouldn't have to hire the officers.
You're hiring
Yeah.
dispatchers.
We're hiring
You're just
dispatchers.
moving
That's right.
officers into those roles.
I'm sorry, the training is what I'm really talking about, training them, not the
Specialized SRO training, I assume there's some.
there is some, a lot of it, some they get at the annual NASRO conference, National Association of School Resource Officers. When we put Officer Palmieri in that position, we had him just shadow the New Canaan SRO for a couple of weeks up at New Canaan High School. We're fortunate enough now that we have our own, at Darien High School, so that would be part of the training process.
So hopefully the Middlesex one could
Right.
shadow the high school.
Right, Officer Wallman, and learn from there. And we also have a large contingent of SLOs, school liaison officers,
Okay.
that have been checking in regularly with the schools. So I'm pretty confident that one of them would be a good fit.
That's a great model. We appreciate that you continue that model.
And you have that model at Middlesex right now, so that wouldn't, if there was an SRO, obviously they take the place of the Middlesex liaison.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay. Any further board questions on the civilian dispatch? Questions from F&B members? Bert?
Yeah, I just struggle a little bit with putting these different issues together. If you have an issue with overtime, overtime by definition is actually something unexpected, but it's supposed to be a temporary issue that you have to deal with by either having, better assignments or to have more staff. I could work my way back and say, yes, we want to avoid overtime. And to do that, we need more police officers on patrol, and to do that, we have to have the civil dispatches. But I don't see the logic being developed in our discussions here. We're getting more overtime, and we want to have more dispatches. There's got to be a way to find a mathematical formula, even if it's only a loose model, how these manpower requirements translate. I mean, if I have a dedicated narcotics officer, do I need another full-time person, or can I assign some of the stuff that's being done by others when they spend, 10% of their time on these issues? That will reduce because there's a dedicated narcotics officer. These mathematical formulas I don't see.
The connection is that we want an SRO at the middle school. We want dedicated narcotics officers. There are 2 ways we can do that. We could hire 2 additional sworn police officers. Or if we hire the civilian dispatchers, 3 to cover 1 shift, that frees up people who are currently working on dispatch as police officers to become the SRO, the dedicated narcotics officer. It's about how the shifts are constructed in the police department, that covering one full shift of dispatch will allow the chief to assign somebody permanently to one of those roles and not change our police headcount.
But I think that's Bert's question, and that's where I think the offset really is. So if in fact we currently on one of these shifts have one dedicated police officer, regardless if it's filled by 20 different people, you have one full-time equivalent of a police officer on these shifts. So how many hours or full-time equivalents are the civilian dispatch replacing? And if it's, let's say, 1.5 officers, then I know that we have one officer that, regardless of who it is, but it fills the SRO or the dedicated narcotics. And I think that's the missing link that I think was confusing me, and I think was Bert was asking. So we're putting 2 civilian dispatchers on 2 shifts right now, if I'm understanding this correctly.
Right now we have
3.
we have 3 civilian dispatchers that provides us with 2.
They cover one shift. Right
They
now, we
cover
have
one
3
shift,
people that
okay.
covers the day shift.
So, and that should have freed up an officer then.
It did.
Okay. So now we're putting 3 more on to cover another shift.
Correct.
So the cost equivalent, that should be freeing up at least 1 FTE
Yes.
of a police officer.
Yes.
Could I just interrupt for a second? All right. The way our shifts work, officers currently work a section of days and then evenings. They alternate, okay? So, yes, it frees up an officer on day shift, but when that officer is scheduled to work, I can't take him out of the schedule, because when he's scheduled to work evening shift, there would be a missing officer in that evening shift schedule.
Yeah,
So
so
that's-
we need to get the evenings covered in order to free up an officer to come out of the shift
Patrol
rotation.
schedule.
So the reality is that there is no police savings
No,
at all.
no,
And so to add the SRO, we are hiring somebody in addition to the civilian dispatch.
No.
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 Well, from,
Because right now,
unless we're reassigning,
we'd be, so the way their shifts work, they work so many days, then so many nights.
Yeah, understand that.
So what the chief is saying is he can't pull somebody out of that rotation, because right now, we haven't replaced them at night with dispatchers, with civilians. In order to be able to pull somebody out of that rotation, we have to have civilian dispatchers, not just during the day, but also at
All
night.
right, but that's what I'm saying. Once we have in place the civilian dispatch, then one of the police officers, the full-time equivalent of a police officer should have been there. The problem, it seems, is because the patrol works days, night shifts, all right, and the SRO would be at daytime since we don't have night school. You don't, it's not really an equal, I can pull somebody off because I may only get 60% of that person on the day shift and 40% is on the night shift. So there's still a mathematical missing link here. And that's what, I mean, it would be helpful to have a better understanding, because I'm understanding what the chief is saying, that equivalent who's working that night shift, the evening shift on the phone, is really just doing when they're doing that share of the evening shift for the night, day. It's not one full-time person who's working evening shift consistently.
Correct.
So I don't have a full-time equivalent to say I have one person who's an SRO. It's almost as if I would need 2 SROs, and that doesn't necessarily function. So I'm still needing to hire an SRO.
No, I think the chief and I we'll sit down and see if we can lay out the logic for you so that it's understandable.
Yeah, I mean, I
Okay.
think.
'Cause I don't think we're gonna get there
But
tonight.
That day-night was now confusing it.
Can I ask you
Yes.
just slightly differently? Which is, for the SRO, it's effectively, for the SRO that's at the high school, they work only day shifts?
Yes.
Right.
Okay, so the, one of the officers that you would free up by having civilian dispatch for the evening shift, right? Is theoretically getting reassigned to be the SRO at the middle school, so they effectively get pulled out of the daytime, nighttime shift
Yes.
component.
Right.
And then the question is, does the narcotics officer, dedicated narcotics officer, become an only daytime person too, or do they or do they remain on the daytime, nighttime shift?
Well, he wouldn't be, he wouldn't be affected by the day-night. He would work totally separate in the detective division.
Okay, so then
So he's-
you're effectively pulling two people out of the day-night rotation.
Yes.
And putting them in another job that has completely different hours that are required.
Right.
Correct.
That's how you get to the savings.
So, right, but essentially then, it says, whatever the percentage on that evening shift is, there has to be a replacement, so either officers are working overtime, or you
No, the
need to
civilian
hire
dis-
someone.
Jack,
to do
there
that.
would be, the nighttime part of their job is in the dispatch office,
Yes,
dispatch.
I understand.
But since
we-
since they're not, you don't need to replace the position.
No, but if you just pull them out
Yeah.
and make them into a daytime person, then the patrol is missing that one person who's also filling in the nighttime shift, which is why the chief said it doesn't work as simple as just pulling somebody out and making them daytime.
So why don't we schedule a separate time when you can come in and talk with
Right.
Kate and Ray
Yeah,
to understand, but
I'll
it's
talk
not
to
my,
them.
what you're suggesting, Jack, is not my understanding of how this model will work.
Yeah, it wasn't
So-
mine either, that's why I was a little bit confused right now.
Yep. And just to close the loop on your comments, Bert, the goal of this isn't to reduce the overtime. We have to really be clear about that. The goal of this is to have a police department that provides the level of service that the town requires, which now will include, if we approve this, professional telecommunicators, an SRO in our middle school, and a dedicated narcotics officer. But the objective is not to reduce overtime.
And I would have to say, I wouldn't necessarily ever propose hiring additional personnel to reduce overtime, because it's not necessarily the most cost-effective means of covering hours.
Got it?
Overtime does not come with pension cost, benefits costs, et cetera. So, I wouldn't necessarily do that.
Well, we
Anyway.
always want to be mindful of overtime, and I think that the Board of Finance has been, over the last number of years, very diligent about doing that analysis, and the new software tools that the department has really assists us in understanding where our overtime costs accrue.
I have one other quick question on overtime. When the cams first came in, there was a fear that the time to download every MRA increased over time. I'm curious what from looking at the numbers, it doesn't look like that's occurred.
No.
It's,
Okay.
nope, doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Good, all right,
Okay,
thank you.
thank you.
Okay.
Let's move on.
Okay, 107, fleet services. The item that I want to highlight here is the increase in the motorcycle lease. While we were less than fully staffed, we had gone back to one motorcycle. The chief has requested, and I've supported, going back to 2 motorcycles. They're used for traffic enforcement, and I think it's a very good tool, so.
Can you just clarify for us, I think you might have mentioned this before, do the motorcycle officers work year-round?
They do, and when it's very cold, they're usually not using the motorcycles, but they will use them up until, November, even sometime in December, and then
We're on a
they're
daylight
back up
today.
there.
I was gonna say, would they, are they, do they go out of service, or would they be out on a day like today in the winter?
A motorcycle, it's possible they could, but they have alternate transportation if we're not using the motorcycles.
Yep. I just wanted to know essentially how much of a year they're in service, that's all.
They're the vast majority of the year,
Okay.
and then when the weather is, on a day like today, they could take it out.
Okay.
Do you have, speaking of that, do you have any other numbers or whatever that you used to have 2 out there, then you only had 1? Any difference in any other concrete information you could give us to make that decision why we should go back to the 2, other than it's a good practice to have them?
Are you looking for like differences in the number of stops or enforcement?
Yeah. Something other than it's, I mean, I understand where you guys are coming from, but when we're trying to justify it, is there anything else that's concrete?
We haven't had the second motorcycle officer in my tenure as the chief, just because our staffing levels haven't been where they, up to speed.
Do you track, when you track motor vehicle stops, warnings, et cetera, do you ever track whether they're done by an officer in the vehicle or on a motorcycle?
No, but we track the individual officer who's assigned to the traffic division.
Yeah.
Okay, so could we maybe look back and get some stats on when we had 2, how many they were doing?
We can do that.
Okay, that might help.
Yeah.
And further, we have a queue list of people waiting for motor vehicle enforcement on their street or their area.
Yep.
Okay.
We have a queue list for putting out the bollards in the road during the spring and summer and fall months. We have a queue list for putting out the speed sentries. It's very tough for one officer to get all of these done. And he's making calls to 5 or 6 residents every day who are calling the traffic division looking for enforcement and or presence in their neighborhood.
And don't forget that there's a great interest in having more enforcement in the downtown quarter.
And on Renshaw Road.
Correct. Okay.
Okay, page 108.
Does motorcycles, many of our police cars have the plate readers. Do motorcycles also have plate readers?
No.
Station operation.
Hold on, one more
I'm
question.
sorry.
Procedurally, why is the motorcycle not in the capital budget in?
It's a lease, as opposed to a purchase.
And it's not a capital lease.
So it's not a capital lease.
Okay, station ops.
So we're assuming, you see in the electricity, we're assuming some reduction in cost due to the solar panels. And this is the one that I talked to Captain Anderson about. Don, is this the one we talked about, the increase in the equipment maintenance contract? That was a recommendation from our HVAC, our facilities mechanic, Dave Sabini, that we go for a higher level of service contract because of the parts that it includes replacement for that. He felt while the contract itself was more expensive, in the long run it would be better for us. Actually less expensive for us, as we wouldn't have to pay for some of these parts as they need to be replaced. But this is also the area, if you recall, we're having the recommissioning done.
Correct. Do we think that the retro commissioning would impact this request in any way?
I would believe it will, but not in this budget year, because I don't think it's going to be completed
I
by the
doubt it.
time we're done with the budget.
I don't see a big change there. Am I looking at the wrong line?
Equipment maintenance contract is a $5,000 increase. It's about midway down the page.
Okay, got it.
Okay.
I was one line above you. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
They basically gave us 2 proposals, but the more comprehensive maintenance contract covers compressors, some circuitry, circuit boards, things that are gonna be very expensive if they go toes up. So Dave Sabini thought it would be most economical to go for that in the event that one of these major component
Sure.
the system goes down.
Okay.
The only other reduction there, you see the sewer use charges, that's just based on the actual usage. Next page is the dog license revenue, and then on page 110, we have the animal control budget. Really, it's a status quo budget. I did make some reductions based on historic actuals.
This is another area that's ripe for regionalization.
Yes.
People talk about it across the state.
You talk to animal control?
Yes, that we would share an animal control officer with a neighboring town.
I've asked Chip Stahl, is there any movement on that Stanford facility? He doesn't have much knowledge of it. I don't know if they're building something. He said perhaps they're building something new down there, but are you asking if we could bring our dogs to Stanford to house them there, or?
I think I'm asking about one animal control officer sharing, for example, the town of Darien and the town of New Canaan.
Conversely, I think we need personally more than one animal control officer, because when he's not here, we don't have really any backup. So I'm not suggesting we need 2 full-time animal control officers, but I'd like to see something at some point where we would have some kind of backup to our animal control officer.
Do you have reciprocal agreements, much like the health department when David Knopf is away? Somebody from Stanford stands in for him?
New Canaan typically will cover for him in emergency situations. They're not coming simply for a roaming dog and taking the dog somewhere else. Our officers are handling that.
Okay.
You know, I know in the town of Fairfield, they have 7 animal control officers. Not all full-time, but they have 7 people to draw from, so they can always have somebody to come to take care of a dog that somebody calls in. So at some point, I'd like to see some movement there as well.
Well, I certainly would entertain
Interesting.
the idea of an inter-municipal agreement that would allow us to draw on the resources of other communities when we need it. I support that.
We're very fortunate that we have this agreement with the boarding house over in Norwalk. Without that agreement, we would have to go back
We'd have to have hounds.
back to the drawing board to figure out some other type of operation. So
We've got to
we're
entertain
pretty
that.
fortunate.
Just kidding. Just kidding.
That's the end of the operating budget.
Okay.
If you go to the.
They don't have no capital.
Yeah, they have capital. The police capital starts on page 15 under the RFCNRE tab. Is the summary. So we have vehicle replacement.
4 cars?
4 cars and 1 administrator vehicle. If you recall, we went to 3 years for our replacement a number of years ago. That seems to have worked well, keeping our repairs reasonable and our capital costs down. Next up,
Is the administrative vehicle also a SUV?
It's a Ford Explorer, yes.
Yeah,
Again,
four-wheel drive.
it's a police,
Same
yeah,
tires, same headlights, same motor,
it's just not marked.
same oil filters.
Okay. Excuse me.
And you're happy with those cars that we've been buying, the SUVs?
They've been
Yeah.
largely trouble-free. They are the national standard now. Ford doesn't even make a police car anymore. That is their only police package that they make is a Ford Explorer.
All over the
And
country?
they've pretty
They
much-
need all those
they've
radios.
pretty much cornered the market again.
Yeah, pretty much.
They've been very dependable, because they're all-wheel drive, we don't have to buy snow tires, so our tire budget has been reduced from 5 or 6 or 7 years in the past. And they're pretty stalwart, we really haven't had much problems with them. That's what we're looking for, kind of like a telephone, it works when you pick it up.
Yours does.
The next item they have is radio replacement. This is an ongoing project to replace the radios as they reach their useful life. And then we have some small capital items.
Well, on the radios, so you have like, what was it, 51 radios? And you have 18 new ones if we approve this, so you've got 33 to go.
Mhm.
So I assume they work, there's no, they're not, they are compatible, right?
They are,
Yes.
yes,
And the
frequency-wise.
radio technology now, in the event we ever were forced to move to some other band, these could move with them as well. They have much more latitude as far as programming, as far as, frequencies.
Oh, good.
So-
All right, fine. Yeah, that's
I'm
kind
not-
of what was.
I'm not an expert on radios, but I trust our folks that they're telling us this is what we need, and there's some latitude there with them.
That was my concern, was behind my question. Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
In small capital, we have a, Jamar portable speed and traffic counting radar device.
That's something that, we haven't asked for in the past. We have some real old technology there as far as, this type of device. This is something that you could do for counting cars. It registers the amount of vehicles that are on a particular road, the speed that they're going. When we get complaints about people, from residents who say their road is inundated with speeders, we can put that there for monitoring purposes to see what particular times we should focus our enforcement efforts there.
Can we put one in the back parking lot?
Can't let people know about it, though.
Can this also assist if there are inquiries made in relation to things happening in planning and zoning?
Yes.
Okay, great.
As far as doing traffic counts.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Currently, right now, we would borrow this equipment, or we would ask Westcog to come use their equipment, which they just did for me on Sylvan Road. This would be the ability for multiple departments in-house to use this for whatever they need. This is not a traffic display. It doesn't display someone's
Yeah.
speed. It's just monitoring, unobtrusively giving us accurate data on any one street as to, right? If somebody says that everyone's going 70 miles an hour, the data's going to show us what they're really going.
You
Over a
wouldn't,
week
you
or
wouldn't know
two.
what it was if it's strapped to a pole. It doesn't look like, a speed limit sign or anything. It doesn't flash your speed. It's just a counter.
I don't like those.
But it's not vehicle specific. It's not telling someone who is speeding. It's just
Okay.
telling us a
That's
car.
good, but you'll know that people are driving 50 miles an hour on Corbin
So
Drive
when it does, it's
Yes.
happening in the
while the
morning.
pedestrians are trying to cross to the post office.
Yes.
Okay, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good. That's great.
When they put it out on Noroton Avenue, I'm always like, oh, God, slow down.
That's the point.
Yeah, I know. So,
Mobile data terminal.
modal data terminals to replace them. Those are ongoing. Also ongoing, replacing the AEDs in the vehicles. Remember, police officers are first responders.
Yep.
Okay, so one of the big ones, replacing the records management system, or upgrading the records management system. And the chief.
We have, our current system is TriTech FBR system, which we've had for a number of years. It's consistently failed us. It never lived up to its billing. It's complicated. It's not user-friendly. It asks us to fill in a lot of fields that are unnecessary. Officers get very frustrated with the time it takes to fill out a police report. Police reports are our life's blood. Accurate, professional-looking police reports are submitted to court for prosecutors, judges, defense attorneys to read. We have to have a good product. This new Inform RMS web upgrade, I personally had a demonstration of it when I was at the IACP conference last year. It's the newest technology. It's simple, it's user-friendly, the officers will be much less frustrated, and it's also gives us the ability to enter data from our CAD system right into our RMS system, whereas right now, that has to be done manually by records personnel.
So I think there's a
And from
lot of,
FBR into RMS, they have to do it manually as well.
there's a lot of efficiency to be
Yeah.
gotten by upgrading to this system.
Sounds like it.
Then we're going to a new in-car video camera system. We've had the in-car video for quite a while.
It's,
This would be, go ahead.
it's pretty old technology, the in-car video. This is different than the body cams. This is old technology, probably going on, I don't know, 10 years or so, 10 years old. The new stuff we could get with the same manufacturer of our body cameras. It's more interoperable, and we would have secure cloud data storage as opposed to a server that we have now. And the technology is much better as far as quality, voice, video. It's just the latest and
And
greatest.
it'll be easier for the officers to operate,
Much easier.
go on, one goes on with the other.
One goes on with the other.
Chief, you said this is cloud-based storage.
Yes,
Do our body cams go cloud-based? or
yes, they are,
They are cloud-based.
correct.
Okay. I forgot that when the presentation was made. I
Right.
know it's a big amount of storage.
So we will see this again for 5 years in total, is that correct? It's a 5-year commitment?
5 years, yes.
And so the last capital item to talk about is replacing the building access and security system. And I think that the thing that got me on this is when they talked about officers having been kind of trapped in certain parts because of failures of the system and they got stuck. So,
Yeah, the system that came with the new building was not the top-of-the-line system, and we've already had a number of our card readers fail at various entry points, specifically in the booking area. We did have a couple of officers get trapped back there. They had to call up front, get some help to get them released. That's been fixed. The current card readers are already not being serviced anymore by the current vendor. You can't get them.
yeah. And I've been there when times when, in order to get through the door and you have to, do the thing, the officers had to kind of do a really quick,
Yeah.
It didn't function well. It didn't make moving through the building easy. And I think it may have been a product of value engineering.
I was going to say, Kip, more lessons learned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Building system, lessons learned.
When did
Oh,
we
yeah.
open that new part of the police station?
2012, 2013.
John Zagrodsky, I can hear him now.
I know,
Oh, that's exactly right.
quite a few problems there.
Well, I just hope the police officers were the one who's released from booking, not the criminals.
Or stuck in there versus, yeah.
Question on the new system. The upgrade and you mentioned these are 5-year commitments, but is it an operating expense or is it capital?
The upgrade is not a 5-year commitment. The 5-year commitment is the replacement of the dashboard cams.
Right, so, but that's like, so then I would expect to see 47,000 a year as we're, for the next 4 years.
You're right, it's, I think there was an error in completing the capital plan.
So, just a simple question. I guess it's capital because it lasts for,
It's based on the dollar amount of the purchase and the useful life.
Okay,
Kind of have to have both.
okay. And I'm assuming that it's 5 years.
10,
Yeah, okay. Sounds good. All right, I just wondering why it wasn't.
yeah, I think we'll make that correction. Because if you look at the detail sheet, it does,
Yeah.
Okay, so it's your summary sheet on
The
page.
summary sheet is, yeah, the
15.
summary sheet needs to be updated.
Gotta update that.
Although,
Yeah.
we don't, 5 years at 47,000 isn't the total project costs.
No, tapers off.
Yep, there's something wrong there. Check that
Okay.
out and fix it.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
I was trying to figure that out too.
Mhm.
Let's see, 5 and 4.
It's
There
more
could
of a
be some-
It's more of a 3-year, it looks more like 3 years.
There could be some initial costs
Yeah.
that, and then
I'll
ongoing
talk to the
costs.
chief and we'll
Okay,
get that figured out.
great. All right, are there any additional questions for chief and captain and commissioner?
Defibrillators,
Yes, sir.
are they even in the budget?
They're in the
Yeah.
small capital.
Small-
They are. How many? The write-up says some.
How many did we ask for?
That's, I think, probably only one.
It's only,
Is that one for $3,200?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it might be.
I think it's 2.
2?
3,200, 32 something, 3258.
32.58.
Yeah. Okay, so, and we'll do that over the next 5 years, by the looks of things.
Well, it looks, total project cost over 6 years is
6 years, there it is.
$17,278.
6 years, I didn't see
So
that, 6
Yeah.
before.
I guess what
One or two?
we don't know is
That's 2. what we-
how many units that represents, that 17,278. Okay. Nothing else?
Yeah, I mean, that's not a showstopper. Let's go
We
on.
still
I
have
just-
a mix of adult and child AEDs, or are they all one kind now?
They're all the same AEDs, they're different pads to put for infant, child, or adult. When you plug in the certain pads, there's an electronic connection there that tells you what pad's there and it delivers the proper shock.
Okay.
Well, is this enough to meet the need? Are we replacing old ones?
Yeah, we're replacing old ones, but we found out that we were still one short, that I think the boat didn't have one. So we want to make sure that all
Okay,
our marked fleet and the police boat.
so that's this year, right, and done?
And then we're in the period where we have some that are 10 years old and no longer
Fine.
supported by the manufacturer for
Fine,
warranty.
thank you.
So,
Thank you.
those important kind of things.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Just a, maybe a process document suggestion is with something like this where you have a project that will be funded over multiple years, it might be beneficial to have some way of depicting that capital spend over the years of the planned project on this,
On the form?
on the form. Mhm.
Yeah.
I-
We're talking about redoing this form.
Okay.
I would say I found your capital stuff the write-ups are very informative and helpful, so
Thank you.
more than,
But these
better
are-
than average.
I'll give him full credit for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree. I think they did
And
a really good job.
nothing really extraneous, you seeking some efficiencies, which are great. I think really the biggest issue for us likely this year will be obviously the civilian dispatch request.
Yes.
If I could
Okay.
Just add one more thing, just a thought on the body cameras. On the form, on the projection form that we projected out to 6 years, I think that the initial expense for the body cameras was in that capital request, but then for it would shift to operating as our body cam,
Right, the
Okay.
software maintenance.
Yeah,
that part of it.
Yeah.
Okay,
And that is
understood.
projected in a form that I did, out the cost per year out,
Okay.
going out, so.
okay,
So it's not
Thank
even, yeah.
and I think
Front
it's
end
just
load.
operating, yes.
okay.
So this cost, this includes the acquisition of the units and that cloud storage for this fiscal year. And then the
Okay.
subsequent years will be in operation.
Right, because the 47,000 will replace all of your dash cams, right?
Correct.
So it's a one-time capital purchase and
Okay.
then an ongoing support contract.
So the 139 is the ongoing support over On the page, the total project cost is 139.
I think that includes this first year, the acquisition of the units themselves, plus the cloud storage,
Yeah.
and 4 additional years of the
Of
cloud storage.
Okay.
Oh, got it.
Yeah, that's the
Got it.
kind of information I'm kind
Yeah.
of looking for in the
Yeah.
document. Yeah, great, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
So what is your appetite for continuing to push on
I didn't realize going home was an option.
Hey, I'm just asking, you have 2 more meetings this week, the other topic we had for tonight was fire. And I'll tell you, I'll be honest with you,
Some chocolates? Could we?
I didn't feel like, what we did with the fire departments, we consolidated the cost for firefighter 1 training into the fire commission. We consolidated the cost of their medical, their physicals that are required by OSHA and standards. Consolidated that under the fire commission. Other than that, I want to say there's nothing really remarkable about their budgets. I think we're really getting a handle now on the new method. So a lot of these changes in their budgets, either their requests or my cuts, were mainly to get us to historic actuals. Some of them are increases where, their facility maintenance repair has been more than we budgeted, or so we're trying to, even it out and get to where our actuals have been. Their individual increases, and these pages don't really reflect it because the numbers you show, that's after we take out the medicals, they all show these big decreases.
Right.
But their increases are all reasonable. I really felt this year that they put together responsible budgets.
So I'm going to make a recommendation. Can we power through fire marshal, disaster preparedness, fire commission, and EMS?
Sure.
And then everybody, before tomorrow night, review the 3 departments and come prepared with any specific questions?
Okay,
That be all right?
yep,
Okay.
Okay, so the fire marshal's on page 132.
I need a break.
Yeah.
You guys,
Yep.
go without me.
Okay, I will say that the dynamics, the various, metrics from last year to this year, they don't match. And, it's up to you. I'm glad they're putting metrics in, but these, come on. Can we at least have some consistency from year to year?
I'll admit to not having reviewed their metrics.
No, that's
and
okay.
what we tried to do is standardize among the departments what they're reporting.
I know, but when someone says, I had so many house fires one year, and then the next year, for that same year, they say I had a different number, that sort of blows my mind. It's nice to have the metrics. I'm glad we're getting there. It's just it's helpful when there is consistency, even in one fire department from year to year.
Okay, I'll
That's
take a
all.
look at that and see,
Okay, I don't want to.
see if there was a reason behind it. If, some of it, they may have last year had things in 3 different categories, and we said to combine it all.
I looked at that too. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Let's not waste time on that.
Okay, all right, we'll take a look at it. So the most notable thing here in the fire marshal budget is we are moving 50% of the deputy fire marshal's salary, et cetera, into the emergency preparedness budget. So that's where you're seeing the reduction in the full-time salary. It's just moving from one area to another. We have an increase in the fire marshal's budget in part-time salary. That's related to increased hours for the blight officer. It is taking more hours than we originally had anticipated. And one of the reasons behind that is not just the number of calls, but they're taking the care to document anything that looks like it might be blight. We're not citing them as blight right now, but it has the potential to become blight. They're documenting it properly so that if we ever have to go to court, it's supported just like any case that is being treated as blight. The other thing, so, if you look down the page under operating supplies, the increase of $365, this is for 4 gas meters. I had a very hard time understanding whether it was 4 gas meters. What it is these gas meters detect 4 gases,
4 different gases.
4 different gases.
Yes, so
So
we,
that is for 4 replacement sensors for 4 gas meters.
and we requested the language change to be multi-gas.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be easy, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so, I think, did you want to, had you asked to do the fire commission?
Yes,
Okay.
But on the fire marshal, just leaving, the total increase in salaries, when you get through adjusting all the stuff out, is $16,426. That is $14,149 for part-time, which is your increase in your blight, and then the full-time increase of $2,277. I just wanted to understand that
Yes.
when we see a number going down, it's disguised by virtue of all the
It-
stuff
it
that's
is.
being transferred.
And,
Okay.
and I think in the coming years, as these redevelopment projects are completed, we're going to have to take a look at this budget and our service model and evaluate it to see if it continues to be the best way to operate with the multiple part-time inspectors.
Yeah, yeah.
Because this isn't, their workload will not go away when, whereas the building,
It's gonna go up.
the inspections will go up during the construction, but
But
should go
afterwards,
back
too.
down.
No, but they'll still have, they'll have a lot more buildings and apartments to inspect?
yes.
No, yes, the fire marshal will continue to have this
Yeah.
ongoing, the building inspectors will not.
No, the
So,
fire marshals.
we're gonna need to take a look at that.
Yep.
All right, the fire commission. I think it's actually before the fire marshal, so they're on page, the
126?
narrative starts on 124, the numbers are on 126. So you see here the increases in training. They'd already had money budgeted for firefighter 1 in the fire commission. I increased it. Professional services, that's where they do some of the testing of equipment. I reduced it based on the historic spending patterns.
Okay.
And then you see the medical services increase. That's from combining
Page number?
or consolidating the other
126,
departments,
fire
the individual
commission.
departments into the, under the fire commission.
Kate, when did we actually move the dispatch so that CMed did the fire department?
Fiscal 17.
Fiscal 17.
They're happy with it.
Yep.
Have we seen any data showing that, other than they're happy with it, that we can say this was a good move because?
No. It's, no.
Yeah, that's kind of a problem. I mean, I wish we had something more concrete than they're happy with it.
Anything in particular you wanted?
Well, whether they're getting to fires faster, I mean, I think they're doing a great job. It's something that we wrestled with, we talked a lot about, but.
So we can look at their response times, and we did, I think the Chief Osborne had got me some information on the transfer time of the calls. We can look at the response time of the fire departments, but that doesn't necessarily indicate that the dispatch is working any better. That could just be, who happened to be close to the firehouse when the call came in.
And the dispatch, so the call is still going into the police department.
Yes.
And they're still the dispatcher is still on the line the
Right,
entire time.
They transfer the call to CMed, but yes, they can stay on the line and continue to hear what's happening for dispatching
Right.
the police officers as needed.
If I might, if I recall, was said that definitely on anything where the EMTs would be there, the police officers sometimes, based upon where they are, may get to that house first, so That's the other reason why they stay on the line.
Well, the police officers are the first responders,
Yeah,
so
they're
we would expect them to get there
They're
first.
dispatching their officers
Yeah.
to be able to be
Yeah.
the first responder.
Right.
Okay.
So you said Chief Osborne has given you information on the time to transfer the call. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
I believe I asked him for it and got that.
Okay. I'm
If not, I
interested-
definitely asked him for it.
Okay, I'm interested in that. Because that's the one area where we can look at the difference. That would, really be informative to our decisions on the civilian dispatchers,
Okay.
right?
Um,
Okay.
Okay, and then emergency preparedness
Mhm.
has its line in its own tab. So the numbers actually start on page 138. And so here you see the other side of that
Yep.
reduction from the fire marshal's office. A request that the deputy fire marshal made, or emergency preparedness director in this case made this year, was to attend the International Association Conference for Emergency Preparedness Directors. So that's the 1,800. I did take a look at the kind of classes that, he would get by going there, and I think it's a valuable tool for us to have him attend this conference and get that knowledge.
And that's only for Mark,
That's
not
only
for
for
Chip.
Mark. The other big thing here,
Price is not unreal.
go down just a little bit to radio repair maintenance, you see the big
Yep.
increase,
Mhm.
58,000.
Yeah,
So when police had gotten a 5-year contract as part of the renovation of police system, or police department, we now have a service contract that we have to pick up. It was at $50,000, it's increased greatly. As Mark explained it, our agreement must match the state's. That includes hardware and software replacement costs. So that's what the large jump is this year to, now that the one we got when we built the building has run out, we now had to buy one. Going forward, we should only see normal minor increases. We won't see a big jump like this again, but
But will it remain at $132,000?
it will remain at that level. We won't see $50,000 jumps again, but
No,
it'll remain at that level, yes.
and that's before we have to worry about changing out to meet the new federal standards, which is
If
a
we have
$6
to-
million number.
Yes, if we have to do that, that's going to be a very big number.
Yeah.
at this point, he's anticipating that will not be happening, but we don't know.
We don't know, I know, we talked about it at the
Yeah.
meeting, but still, the radio cost, that's the only
Yeah.
problem.
We're really kind of counting on the big cities
Saying no.
Yeah.
saying no.
If it's 6 million for us, imagine what it would be for a big
New
city.
York, goodbye.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, even the radio, that's ridiculous.
Since you were talking about unfunded mandates, this actually sounds like one.
It is.
It is.
And just out of curiosity, for the ongoing $50,000 a year that the town is now paying, what is our incremental benefit from doing this?
Good question. Can't really say that, the higher cost provides us a greater, more replacement, more things are covered, should they break down, need to be repaired, but,
So it's like buying the extended warranty on a car,
yeah, it sounds, yeah.
which provides more value.
Only if it breaks down.
But this was done by the legislature.
I would assume it was by the legislature. What the director told us was that we have to match the state's agreement.
Okay, another unfunded
It's
mandate.
an unfunded mandate, basically.
Maybe we can get him to provide us with a more
More
detailed
detail.
memo on this.
It'd be nice to know that there was some benefit coming from this.
That's all I was asking.
I
Well,
know.
it is a service contract, but, the fact that it's costing us so much more, are we getting that much more of a
We're
benefit?
going from 70,000 to 150.
I'd be
130.
satisfied with any benefit.
Okay.
And if you want to do EMS real quick.
Yep.
Sure.
We're not anticipating any need to increase our share of the cost for the paramedics. I would say the next line, equipment maintenance contract, I think we cut it, eliminate it, because this is one of those just-in-case kind of numbers, so I think we should reduce that. And then the last one is the increase in our cost with CMed for the ambulance dispatch.
So, sorry, back on equipment maintenance contract, you have already made a cut. Are you suggesting we make an additional cut?
Yes, I'm suggesting eliminating it.
Eliminating it entirely, okay.
Can we go back to professional services?
Yes,
Okay, this is the one where you get reimbursed, you lower your cost because of reimbursements with people paying.
this is, we must pay, we guarantee that Stanford will get
Right.
a certain amount of money every year.
Right,
So they get it either through billing the patients.
right,
We cover what the billing of the patients doesn't
right. We started out by saying, let's put in $80,000, but we're not sure how much we're gonna get back. And then when it came in better, Jen said, well, next year, I wanna keep a little bit of cushion in there. And the question is, having only the cost year-to-date of only $13,000 against a $70,000 budget, I know that could be timing, but.
Yeah, that's only one quarter, they bill us quarterly.
Ooh, okay,
So we haven't completed the second quarter.
right,
We should actually be getting the second quarter bill very soon.
but that would still look, well, maybe not.
And there is some seasonality to it.
Yeah.
Really?
So you're,
There's a delay, because it takes you a while to figure out that they won't pay.
that too, okay, so the 70 still looks like a good number rather than, I know last year at 80.
Yeah, we talked about it today and
Okay.
still feel comfortable staying
I
there.
was looking for some money.
Yeah. Well, we'll give you some, I gave you some in the
I
police
know you
budget,
gave me
you know.
some, I know you gave me
And,
some already.
We also believe, where have I got the numbers? Looking at, I don't know what I did with the page. Jen had made a recommendation that we could cut the workers' comp, $35,000. Okay?
Kate, wait,
Where?
quick question, I'm still on
Back in
page
benefits, probably.
141. What are the grants?
Probably.
That's a grant to Southwestern Connecticut. It's the same association that does CMed,
Workers' comp
Southwestern
or
Regional
unemployment comp?
Communication Center.
Fire and all, or-
I gotta find out. Probably workers' comp insurance under
Workers'
benefits.
comp is
215,
age 215.
Okay.
workers' comp.
When it said benefits, I
So-
forgot I had to go to
We can
another.
cut that by 35.
Okay.
And, okay, I'm totally, had we given you the numbers for medical insurance?
We talked about that, wasn't that a
Yeah, did we give you the
down?
numbers?
Yeah,
No,
we
we just-
No,
No, you just said it was gonna be
because I was
7,
really good. I put these pages in my book,
you said it
in
was
the right spot.
gonna be 7% or 7.2% versus 12.
So
what
we
page
can,
number should we be
on
on?
page 215, 214.
Okay. Oh, yeah, here, it's right here, okay.
213. So we can reduce that first line adding the medical insurance by $144,562.
145,000.
562?
Yep.
Okay.
And we have some minor decreases we can do in the parking and sewer budget, so
Okay.
we'll include those in the cut list when we're
Okay.
done. But that's a result of the renewal and including the changes from the town hall contract.
Perfect.
Okay.
Good.
Did you
Okay.
get them all, Jan?
So tomorrow night, we're scheduled to be back here again to discuss capital.
Mhm.
And we want to talk a little bit about the extra funds sheet and analysis that you've done. we'll go over any questions on the fire departments, and we will deliberate. And will you guys be able to prepare a summary of proposed reductions? All right. And if anybody has any other outstanding questions for Kate or Jen, in the meantime, feel free to email.
I have a beach building committee meeting at 6
Okay?
on the 6th. Hopefully, you won't need me here, hopefully.
Okay. You'll give us your input then tomorrow night or before the meeting on the 6th, if there's anything.
If we have one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes. Okay. Good. Anything else? No? All right. Thank you very much. Thanks for the long night.